I've got 30 mil is at the top, so we're gonna start with 30 mil.
Sure. We got a typo, I gotta apologize, don't look at that. Just ignore that thing. It was too late.
Sorry, that's what I have it filed under too.
He's dyslexic.
We got the A first, architectural, yeah, we got that first.
Not dyslexic, I'm just stupid.
With dyslexic.
Floor is yours, so you can go ahead and get started.
You-
We might have one more member joining us, so.
My wife's job.
I'm back. You may remember I've been before you guys a few times. And my name is Richard Corus, managing member of SR Unionville LLC, the applicant project. Partner who you guys know as well, Steve Repka, is the current owner of the building. He's been a long-time tenant. My partner on the project. Probably where I've done a number of projects in Farmington. Maybe start with the slides, but the location is 30 Mill Street, Unionville. It's currently a story office building next to the post office. First met with Shannon and Bruce and Rose. We looked at actually keeping the building in a retrofit. Decided against that. Challenges. Up with a much project. The building was built in the late 60s. Loans really aren't sufficient to what we planned after the building. I'm sure you guys are all aware of the project. The building that's there, that's the back facing the George's Pizza. What we're proposing is to take down the existing structure in total, build a brand new project. Proposals to do a mixed-use project. 3 levels. The first level will be 7,850 square feet of commercial space. 2 floors above it. Apartments, total of 24 apartments. All on each level. They'll be to do 20 one-bedroom apartments or two bedroom apartments. And you see before you is all the parking, et cetera, is on our property. I know there's some confusion who owns what, but that with those 14 spaces are on this top.
So no, on this?
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, this is where, north is being up Mill Street here, so this is the one Cisco's company there, and then obviously the post office. So, yeah, as Rich mentioned, we kind of pulled the building to the Mill Street side. The effect now is right about 5 feet, for front yard, but we're moving a little bit closer. And then kind of staying a little close to the post office side too as well. That's set back on this side. So the retail, first floor retail is that rectangular block right here. This area is the parking under the residential, which you kind of see in the rendering a little bit. So there is some parking, less retail space.
So the building will be an L-shaped building, right? On the site plan, but you'll be able to see when we get to the elevation.
And obviously, you've got to We're up Pike here on the street side. You know, the goal is really, you know, single tenants for the retail or office space, so TBD. You know, we're meeting grade here. It's kind of deceiving, walk the site again today after looking at that brick panel down by Charles House, but the site does slope a good deal, so if we're hitting grade here, it does kick up a little bit. We're about, you know, inches or so higher, and we're kind of, with all the parking here, we've got to meet grade, you know. There's not a whole lot of room to cut.
Obviously, with the brand new building, we'll be upgrading all the utilities, drainage. The picture, to the architectural side of it.
So, you know, kind of knowing the neighborhood and, you know, the amount of the brick, the mill structures that are kind of in that area, we wanted to bring, obviously we felt that we needed to bring brick into the building, at least some way to kind of make it a good neighborhood and with, you know, fit in with the context. The sidewalk's a little difficult to see, but it is up at the sidewalk, the sidewalk line. It's a very long building, not necessarily, but we kind of felt like there was made some sense to kind of reduce the mass, the volume of that building itself. So we're going to have the two brick elements sort of anchoring the corners of the building on Mill Street. This is the Mill Street. And doing setback in the center, you know, putting that mass back and treating it with an alternate material. You've got a little bit of brick, mill look, kind of you know, more of a traditional cornice on the brick portion. And then the first floor, obviously either office or retail. I really don't know at this point whether it's going to be, you know, the first storefront to be on that first floor. There's a, you know, kind of showing a projecting canopy in the center, that, you know, a suggestion to kind of identify entry, that whatever that retailer.
The use will be either medical, wellness, retail, maybe all restaurant. I mean, we're preliminary. We haven't done our marketing yet of the space. We wanted the size is fine for the market area. We just from people. That we think we're going to do very well with it. I do it different than other things in and around. All of the units will have some sort of balcony. Side, and some will be, even though.
Yeah, it's kind of just a French balcony.
So that's just so that there'll be some openness to those apartments.
And then up with the recessed balcony up here, because we're sidewalk, it made sense to push that back out, and it actually has a pretty decent river, and hopefully from that. Signage ban, you know, this is just really an element that kind of continues around the building. Signage is still, you know, completely TBD based on that first floor. Yeah, we're looking at doing essentially some, you know, double hung windows in the brick portion, maybe a little more traditional, maybe switching to a combination of a you know, a fixed and a casement in some of the other areas of, the next slide. I know there's a sample panel down at the Charles House property, and we were looking at that panel a little bit today and maybe considering that as a potential material for the brick portion of the, that's still kind of under evaluation right now. So the parking lot view, it kind of transitions more to that kind of that, what we're thinking of is more of like a mill building look, almost more similar to the building we're in at 45 South Main. Larger, you know, larger kind of factory type of windows, industrial look, mill building look. Some recessed balconies and some French balconies on this side. On the other side, you know, it's probably just more sticking with that French balcony look, just because we're the post office on the east side of the building. What doesn't appear in the rendering really well is this area here. The retail is pushed back about 5 feet, so that's all would be all covered in terms of getting to the here of the residential area. So you've got some cover out of that perfect in that area. You can always look back to the site plan too. A little bit of adjustment on the roof height. You know, when we've got some of the rooftop units, condensing units, they'll all be individual for the apartments. We're going to have to do. Obviously, we're trying to do a little bit of expression with the columns and set up a rhythm, bring the brick down to the first floor, back and forth with some of the setbacks on the facade.
Can you show the plan view again? Looks like a rectangular building there, and here it's L-shaped. Oh, I see it. Okay.
That's where the garage below is on the LPs.
So where are the stairs?
Stairs, 2 sets of stairs. In this area, and then the stair right here, and elevator in the.
Go back to the one over there on the right. Does that show in the elevation?
Here.
Shows on the back.
Rear elevation. Actually, if you flip it, in a sense, this elevation here would be the mirror of that.
I'm looking way back underneath. Is that where the stair comes down?
That's correct. Yep. There, Shannon, yeah.
And what material are you thinking the gray panels on? Is it a hardy panel or?
We're thinking of actually a stow panel. The stow is the manufacturer of the brick panel. More of a stow panel for those areas, and doing the brick panels on the
So we're not rendering the brick piece that's in the center. Is that in the same plane as the piece to the right?
correct. That right now that would be in the same plane.
You're not going to leave it like that, are you?
That's why we're here.
Is that just a raised roof line on both ends?
That's just the raised roof line.
Oh, so that entire facade is
Right now, there's one plan.
Yeah, the only setback is that setback at the first floor where it goes back in about 5 feet.
But on the ends, right, that brick projects out on the ends, right?
There's
And on the front, your grate panels were set in from the brick.
Tell me a little about those columns that are holding up the parking, or that are on the parking lot there, that corner.
You know, we'd like to make them not, make them go away. I think it's just around, you know, around. We haven't actually gotten that far down the road in terms of structure, but what else would you like me to tell you
Well,
about the columns?
you talk about making this more of an industrial flavored building,
Yep.
and I think that's probably an appropriate response to that part of town. But typically, buildings like that are a little more structure oriented. In other words, you read the structure in big chunks rather than small shadow lines. So, and if you could go back one slide, please. So the header over the balcony, I think that could be a piece of steel underneath that silhouetted person. And you could kind of see if there's a way to weave that in. And so you may have some fire issues, but we can figure out ways around that. But the parking area, I mean, how many round columns have we seen in our lives? 14 trillion. They're not doing anything for anybody, but the expressiveness of a wide flange in there with perhaps some steel above it could really lend some flavor to your building, and you could kind of work that through on all the way around all 6 sides.
And keeping with the darker or the black steel, I mean, maybe going that route,
I think
potentially.
he's kind of talking about trying to make it be a little more industrial, you know, so it's not just surfaces
Right.
covered in
Right,
snow,
right.
it's the structure to the building, you know,
That some places gets exposed and some places it's not exposed.
even like on your parking, just as an example, you have that projected brick element on the end, and I think that's on the back as well. Is it on the back of the building?
Yeah, as of right now, it was just a change in colors right now,
Okay.
but, I mean.
I guess it doesn't appear on the back, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, you know, like an element the vertical element that comes to the ground and meets the ground, you know, I don't know. Like, it's very often there's a stair tower or something at the end of a building that kind of anchors it to the ground, you know. Just, but again, I realize this is just a concept. Right,
Well, there
kind of
may-
look at those columns and
Maybe, there
parking
may
is
be,
like sort of toothpicks, you know.
You're nudging at the concept. We're suggesting you push it harder, follow it a lot farther through.
depending on how, we haven't actually figured out how it's gonna be structured, whether on left, right, front to back on the structure, but I mean, there may be an option to do a column line over that overhang that taps the back and kind of speaks to that overhang too as well, maybe tie those two together. Might be.
Right now, you've got that's a cantilever, right, above the
Yeah,
storefront in the back?
that's correct. So
So you have no columns there at all.
that's suggesting front to back structure, not by design, but.
You can go either way, whatever makes sense, but I'm thinking that right now it's essentially an ephes wrap building, and you're talking about making it more industrial feeling, which I think is great. Follow that. Doesn't matter if it's steel or heavy wood, you know what I'm talking about, though.
Sure. Yep.
More expressive in that regard.
Well, I mean, it could be a board or I mean, I can see trying to work in a little bit of,
You want a little more urban kind of feel.
not us, it's you.
No, I know, I'm trying to understand what you guys are looking for, so we can respond.
May I speak now? So I guess my question is, I commend you that you want this to look industrial and millish in our historic mill town. This is a 3-story building. This will be the tallest structure in Unionville. Are there any other 3-story buildings in Unionville? Do we know how much taller is this building than, say, the historic mill next door, the Upson Marketplace? Do we know? I realize we're going to be getting other larger buildings later on.
Then
They're kind of by the river, it's kind of hidden and.
Yeah, you've got that,
lower, so
you've got
it's,
that kind of crenellated end and a pitched roof. So
Your buildings are yours.
under 40 feet, 12 foot first floor, and then 2 10-foot second and third floors. So, you're looking at 32 feet.
and the building now is how tall? I'm just trying to get a sense of how much taller it's going to be.
It's 2 levels, 2 stories.
So it's going to be another 10, 12 feet higher, is that right?
So you could flip back to the, Shannon, can we flip back to the one of the photos? Yeah. Yeah, the only thing is that mansard on the, it's like 2 stories plus right now, so. Don't know exactly.
I guess my question is, and you have a stucco facade and then you have a brick facade, so you're trying to kind of, your thought was that you were trying to kind of make it look like, to me, it looks like 2 different types of warehouses or industrial buildings. One is brick, which is what we have throughout the entire town, and then the other is kind of a very modern looking, I don't know, warehouse from the 70s or 80s. I guess, and I would be very interested to hear my architectural colleagues here and their thoughts, but, to me, this entire town is kind of brick, and that's our history, and I guess I'm wondering, is there a need? I mean, can this be a brick?
We're trying not to look like,
thing,
like a,
kind of looking as opposed to this it just looks like it's trying to be 2 different things. To me, again, I am not an architect, but I guess my question is I'm just thinking, if you're in the middle of a historic district, you have a historic 1917 Carnegie Library, right next door, you have a former Methodist church. I mean, my question is, this building seems ultra-modern and huge to me for our little town. So I guess my question is, have you thought a little bit about making it kind of fit more into the character of the history? Again, I compliment that you were looking for an industrial, because that's, when we built the Dollar Tree store, that was the idea. When we built Stop and Shop, that was the idea. And all of those folks were very, kind of sensitive to that. So I guess I'd like your thoughts on that, and my colleagues' thoughts as well.
I guess, the one comment to that is we were reacting to some things were going on with, certainly not so much, Stop and Shop, but the building that McDonald's is in and the wood trim or whatever too. We were trying to not go in that direction. We didn't want to start introducing more siding and clapboard and, and that. Let's go the other direction. Let's go more of that. Involve more of the brick, I guess, and not be as
we don't want to be a totally brick building.
Right.
Because we have some other interest in the building. Right, there are a lot of brick buildings, but we want to look different than those garden apartments that are next door. They're all brick. We don't want to look like that. We don't want to look exactly like have a kind of a vibe in that element as opposed to building a.
And I think your street elevation is successful in that regard, because you even refer to them as sort of brick end caps, and then they're kind of connected by a slightly recessed element, so it has that sort of rhythm the way a street should have, right? Where you have multiple buildings, almost that they were kind of linked at some point, perhaps. And I realize it's the back of the building, and most of us are never gonna see the back of the building. But as you go around the corner, then the concept falls apart, you know, like like, there's that jog in the roof that I think visually all of us thought was a corner to the building, right? That it wasn't a plane. So I think both Sheldon and I both asked the question, is this really one plane? Because you did such a nice job on the front, you know, and maybe you don't need necessarily the brick pilasters and go to that level on the other surfaces, but treating the brick as a projecting element and the gray as a recessed element is successful in its vocabulary as long as you're consistent with it, right? So, you know, if you make this brick element come around and encapsulate these first two apartments, and then maybe you have a recessed, you know, stucco element on the back, and then where you have the brick, it's back out that 8 inches or whatever it is that you're projecting it back out. So it looks like that was the back corner of the piece that you saw on the corner on the front, right? To sort of be honest with the geometry, that you've got a collection of boxes that are all linked together. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
I like the idea of sort of inverting it, where on the front you've got the corners anchored, but, you know, your point in the center, you know, the brick element, you know, it picks it up on the back, so it sort of inverts, it inverts the language a little bit. But maybe we, you know, that might be an option, so.
So, picking up on Dave and Dean, I think you might want to take a look at the scale of the openings. I would expect that with the brick facades, you might have a slightly smaller scale, because brick is a very small scale, and I think it's one of the elements that you've always reminded us of in Unionville, and how beautiful the brick looks because of the scale, and I mean, the streets are relatively narrow. When you get to the large openings with the EPA side there, it tends to throw it off a little. So I think you need to look at the scale of the windows on the brick as opposed to the scale of the windows on the EPA, and maybe not make them the same. I would treat the brick windows differently than the siding panel windows, and then also pay attention to the scale of the panels if you end up going in that direction, whether they're scored or separate panels.
So I'm gonna explore that point a little bit more in terms of the, what's the general feeling? I mean, if we look at different sizes for the brick versus the EPIS, using different window types, like in the brick becomes a double hung and the EPIS becomes maybe, you know, a fixed in a casement or a hopper, you know, a combination thereof.
I just want to comment, I like the streetscape, because I like that you're along the street, you've got the full width, so when you come down Mill Street, you don't see the ugly parking lot, you see a building. And I like the way it looks like it's 3 buildings. I think that's really good. On this back side on the end, I don't think it looks like it's different buildings. So I really think the right side on the end and the back should be the same brick, so it looks like a building. And then in the center, you go back to the gray, so it's not inverted the way you'd like it, but it looks like it's a different building. So it looks like you have 3 buildings lobbed together. And you're going to remember that George's Plaza is pretty busy, so while that's the back of the apartment, it's really, you know, the front yard to some of the buildings, so that's 2 cents worth. And just to comment on the columns, I mean, I don't know what flexibility you have, but that they do just remind me of, you know, some buildings in West Hartford Center and other places with round columns. So, I mean, maybe you don't have options, but maybe you do. I don't know, but.
Well, and that's, to that point, that's a little unusual for Unionville too, is the parking under the building West Hartford, you see it all over. It's on North Main Street, but not so much on.
I'm not going to see it any longer. The days are over.
Well, they're going up in the center of West Hartford eventually.
That's what they think.
So it's just going back to the columns again, in terms of the columns. So it sounds like, I mean, they're white, they're placeholders right now. They're just kind of, if we went to something that was maybe a little more industrial or steel or black, that that wing could look like it was really floating out over the, it's okay if we kind of go for that sort of look, is that?
I'm not sure, that makes a lot of sense. You've got what appears to be a relatively dense facade, in other words, big, heavy panels. They're not, I know that, but that's what they're intended to appear. Floating?
We're gonna float, but visually.
I know, but is that what you're,
Yeah, why?
you know, do you want to do that? Don't you want to have an anchor? You've got masonry throughout your project. Brick does great when it comes to the ground. I think floating brick is a bit of a challenge.
So if you made the two end buildings as on the front facade brick, if you follow those buildings through to the back of this, then that floating area would be brick. It would necessarily need to be supported by something that looked substantial.
And then it
Supported
can all work.
rather than
Yeah.
floating.
That's just what I'm not feeling right now in terms of, because you're right, once you start doing the brick, then you have to bring it down to the ground, but.
May conflict a little bit with your parking arrangement, I don't know. But if it could look like a building that was,
I have steel's gonna hold up much better to bumpers than that.
it could be granite or stone of some sort for the first couple of feet in brick. Project a little bit beyond the brick. And then along that, what I would say in general is using quality materials throughout this thing is really important. Not so impressed with the brick we saw over at Charles House, but fake brick, I don't know what its name is, it's the Stowe brick. I think we've failed a couple places in town by allowing the Chase Bank and Farmington Center's got this, I don't know what the cornices are made out of, but where the three sections are joined together, telegraphs the joints, and it looks really bad. The cornice on the McDonald's building looks ridiculous. I think my feeling is this committee needs to tighten up a little bit on some of these things. So just overall using substantial and higher quality materials seems important to me.
Now we'll take your consideration.
Just one question. I presume the parking area underneath the building, you need those spaces to make everything work, or? Okay. I figured as much.
I just encourage you that,
There's only, by the way, 10 parking spaces.
spaces are taken up every night, so you're gonna need those spaces underneath.
And then that last row of parking is accessed from George's property, or how does that work?
Well, yes.
Well, that's your parking, all right?
Is that working?
How are you going to control that? Let's assume you're going to have a problem with Saturday night, and half your apartment renters are off of a picnic or a football game or something. They come back late.
You have to probably sign it appropriately, and it does become a problem. Thing that
If you made them tandem.
forget, some of the spaces aren't only for the apartments, it's also for the commercial.
If you made them tandem.
What does that mean?
Well, that means that an apartment would have two spaces. You got to organize a little bit so that you have.
I mean, very
Nobody likes tandem parking, but I think it's,
It's very, very, that with,
yeah, but it seems like it's easier to manage than 25 cars from George's.
We'll manage our parking lot, you know. People in and around that area. I understand, you know, that I've had other properties where parking is appropriate. That issue
I don't understand. How does this work? Do you need a relationship with your neighbor to allow your tenants to use his property to access your property, or?
that's what they're doing right now. Easements between all the properties, because right now, all the properties from the Thompson Bank to all property, all separately owned, but they're all,
You're all just doing
they'll have
this.
cross access to each other.
Right, so that's some legal agreement, that's, yeah.
You'd have to do.
Just back to that parking area one more time that's underground, the back wall of it, could that, I guess I'm more asking the architects on this committee, could that be a solid wall and then open on the two sides? Just wondering what you think aesthetically, because it might make it look more like a building,
Good question.
yeah, and still have your parking. And you could bring your brick all the way down.
I had a thought about that only because you know, walking to work here in Unionville every day, getting out of the car and the wind is whipping, you know, east to west. And I just thought about that and like, that's gonna be a pile of leaves and crap and everything's gonna pile up in that corner. So, I'm not saying it's gonna blow out the other side if it's open, but I just think it's gonna be a feature. Yes, keeping it open.
As I said earlier, I don't think you should be afraid to make this not as modern looking as I think it looks. I don't think, you know, if you're thinking that you want to appeal to a younger generation and that a modern looking building would be more appealing, I would dispute that, because I think that the people that come to Unionville with our new development near Union School and everything it's going to look more traditional, and I think that that's going to draw those kind of people. So, you know, I think there's a tendency to create things that you think, you know, like let's make the most beautiful modern building in Unionville and everyone will want to live there. I just encourage you to think about the spaces and what's around it and try to let it just fit in, because I think that, you know, people want to live in a community that's kind of feels like a community, and I think that you'll find that it's going to be appealing no matter what it looks like, but if it fits in a little bit, I think it's going to be more appealing. That's my opinion.
Sounds like in some of the takeaways, the Mill Street side, we're kind of in the right direction on the Mill Street side with the brick, and sounds like it's more carry that around, working a little more industrial, look at some of the window sizing between brick and non-brick, you know.
That almost goes to the feeling of three separate buildings, you know what I mean? So where you have your gray section in the center, you know, to Sheldon's point, or who, maybe it was Dave's, you may want different sized windows because it was a different building.
I mean, Dollar Tree store, which was formerly Walgreens, when we worked with them, you know, what was there before that was a big gigantic brick mill. It was all brick, and it was beautiful brickwork, but it was on the corner there, and you know, we wanted to kind of recreate that. They proposed something that looked, you know, different, a couple different things, but the idea is we were just afraid of a big, ugly Walgreens type square box that was being put all over the world. So they worked with us to make it kind of look a little bit like three separate buildings. So it was ironic that it was a big square brick building before, and they proposed this, and we loved this building that looked like several different facades and things. And it's probably one of the nicest, kind of things that we have, that's newer, that we've had in the last, so anyway.
That it's a building, since it is 3 stories, and that may be one of the taller structures, I think that it is important to look at what that human scale relationship is. In the brick, having a smaller scale, then that's something more relatable. The panels that are along the street side, and what you're looking into, whether it's the commercial or something else, I think understanding that relationship, and that was looked at, having those different portions so that it's split it up, doesn't become so long. It seems like there's something more relatable as far as a scale. I think that I certainly agree, looking at how that language is taken around.
And I realize these are very preliminary renderings and stuff, so not take too much into it. I hate when people think I've designed the whole building, just show the rendering. But, think of some of the detailing, like at those balconies, the face of the balcony. Right now, you just kind of carved it out of brick, and you just painted brick all over everything. So, I mean, obviously, the face of the balcony, the ceiling.
The brick on the ceiling.
The ceiling, no, and that's the cool thing about Stowe brick, right? That's the great thing about Stowe brick, is you can just stick it on the ceiling, maybe in the bathroom, inside, like, I don't know. But, but you could have like a timber, ceiling. I was just, this week I was at the AA conference, and one of the sessions I went to was on a laminated timber building down in New Haven. And it was really cool because, they have exposed wood walls or ceilings in these apartments. And the apartments they're building, and they're just buying like, laminated timber panels, and they have balconies as part of the project. It's 340 Dixwell, in case you're curious about it.
Well, I mean, to that point, what we might have to do is instead of wrapping the brick under the soffit, is if we do like more of a steel aesthetic, and steel is lighter and stronger, and then maybe that opening becomes more of a single opening with a lighter piece of steel separating those 2 balconies.
Yeah,
We'll look at that.
As you're walking down the street, you feel like you're almost like looking into an old mill where those balconies are carved out.
I like the mixed use. I like that it's close to the street. It's urban looking. Maybe a little more mill building looking would be good, but overall concept feels pretty good to me.
To the drawing board, take your comments into consideration.
Yeah, have fun, yeah.
We come up with something that we all like.
It's all on Sean. It's all on his shoulders now.
No, it's not. No offense.
No.
Truly, thank you for the comment.
Yes. Great.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
see you soon.
Evening. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
This one's better.
So, y'all remember me? So we received detailed minutes, and there were 9 comments that we were asked to respond to. And I'm happy to say that I think we've agreed with all of them, and I think we integrated your very thoughtful comments into the design.
first and obviously the most important thing was mock-up that we provided out at the site. I hope you had an opportunity to look at it, not necessarily knock on it, but go look at it. The second comment was to provide more social course detailing, more that's evident in the powerhouse. So what we did was we basically returned to kind of where we started. We have recessed panels on the stacked flat building. We actually did a little more decorative treatment within the panel to, sort of help, reinforce the visual of that. Comment was to add a second window on this bay of windows, which we did. The other big issue was the window, and we've changed to a wood-clad simulated divided light window. And the sample in the field is what we could get in short notice. So it's not a double hung window, but it's the same mutton and the same, the same design. It's not a double hung. And also, if you look closely, it's not a brick coarse dimension. So there's a little filler panel on one side. But I think it's a window that accomplishes what you were suggesting we needed to accomplish.
I thought you were going for an asymmetrical look.
Yeah, trying to slip in a little contemporary.
They did it, didn't they? They did it well.
There was a discussion about the mortar color. So we did 2 mortar colors, and I don't know if you had a chance to look, but I came away with the one that was recommended by you guys. I think it looks, in the field, I think it looks better.
Which is the darker or lighter?
The lighter color.
The lighter.
Yeah.
I like that.
On the windows, and then there was, discussion of the gable ends. And so we added a rake board at your suggestion and introduced some, soldier coursing at the ridge and another, band at the eave. And then there was a question about the material of our sunken patios in the front yard. We went from a standard block to a rock face, or split face block, gray. Would be very handsome, I think. Mr. Aragoni provided us with the dimensions of the entry pillars, and we have a commitment to find as best we can a brick that'll be sympathetic to the powerhouse for the clock tower. I think we responded in a very positive way to your comments. I think we incorporated all of them, and I sure hope you
Now,
agree.
all these soldier course accents, are they flush? They're just soldier?
Yes.
Windows, I'm just curious, I know there's a bunch of different series. Is there a particular series that you are using?
I'm sorry, I don't have that with me. I can send you that, but it's a wood-clad simulated divided. I mean, it might be 250, but I don't have it handy. I'm sorry.
That's wood clad, that's a vinyl window, but yeah, we would like to, have in the record what series
Sure.
it is.
I will get that to you tomorrow morning.
How long is that?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the 250 is a vinyl window.
I'm sorry, that was the old.
The 250 is what you had before.
That's right, that's what I had before. This is a class, standard wood frame, wood, aluminum clad, simulated divided light window. And that'll be used in both this building and the powerhouse. If you haven't gone out there, actually, you can put it up on the screen if you could, the pictures of the.
We talk about the first floor sills.
These sills.
Along here, that's an EFA sill you made on the
It's
ceiling.
still on the window, yeah.
So I'm nervous that anything around knocking height isn't gonna feel right. I don't think it's gonna get damaged, but it just feels weird. I'm not concerned about the upper floors. No one's gonna get up there. It's an occasional bird, but just felt really hollow. Now, maybe,
Well,
maybe.
this sample, I don't know if you know this, we're building this out of ICF. These are concrete exterior walls. There's a little foam on them, but they're gonna, these are really solid walls, so it won't feel the same.
But you're not gonna cantilever out for the sill. You're just,
No, the sill is part of the ethos,
so,
So I think what he's saying, there's a lot less, what's out there now is all foam.
Here's a big.
yeah, it was all foam, okay, so. A piece of blocking underneath on top of the concrete. This is the
That's the form.
Yeah. So you think it'll be pretty robust?
I think so. I mean, and standard specifications are not about, the knock test is not something that we include in our specs.
I know, but we're not a standard board either.
I learned that. And the sound quality is something that I can't control.
I did enjoy your comment that I hope you didn't go up and knock on it, because we all did.
Of course.
It was the first thing we
But
did.
did you
go-
rub it first? Did you touch, because it feels like a brick. And then you knock it.
Both the texture and the brick and, the texture of the brick and the ethos I thought were expected.
I brought a couple pieces of it, if
So
anybody.
you were the one who did that.
Fell on the ground. So,
Well, they were loose, and I was curious about
so you actually,
how robust this stuff
you
was.
roll this stuff around the corner.
We think that when, they jumped on this for us to build this sample.
Sure.
They couldn't get the corner pieces, so they bent the corner pieces. It's not gonna be as radiused as it
Oh,
was.
there is a corner
Okay.
piece
Oh, yeah, they made corner
that's
pieces.
formed that way?
Yeah.
Because that was the one thing we were all talking about,
Yeah.
like, do they really all come radius like that?
No, it's gonna be a more, built this as quick as we could. They couldn't find the corner pieces.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think from a distance, we all thought it looked pretty good.
Very
It looks
convincing,
great,
yeah.
yeah.
And if you can
Drive by, you're like-
square off the corners, I think it,
Rick Schaefer and Mark Manchester are the developer and builders, and it was, first thing they said is, are they gonna be that round? So our,
Well, because we want them for the round columns in the last.
Paste the brick around them.
I had to bite my tongue, I
know, I saw you.
Filling the bottom and put little arches and it would be perfect.
Reported about the brick ceilings, we just had, with good fortune, but we just finished a project in Boston called the Rope Walk. 150-60-year-old building where the U.S. Navy made their rope from 1780 to 1972 and it's decommissioned. All the components you were talking about, we have. All uniques, we have railroad tracks going over top of brick sinks, the revolving real brick, incredible.
The walls are 4 foot thick granite.
But we didn't take into consideration, I've been doing this 48 years, a third of a mile long man. And an engineer came up to me, he says, well, you do realize, knucklehead, that that's a 130-story building with two 13-foot decks, right? I said, there you go, but I mean, if you forgot a tool, it took you 20 minutes, if it was just, but all the components, and if anyone's ever in Boston and they would like to see a pretty interesting project, we're very proud of it. Damn near killed me and Mark, but we got it done, and
We do have barrel vaulted bricks in some of these.
What's it called? I would be in Boston this weekend.
Rope Walk.
Rope walk.
It's Charlestown Navy Yard.
yeah.
It's 3 football fields long.
It goes from Fifth Street
50 feet
to
wide.
13th Street.
What'd you guys do with the building?
I'll turn it into 97 multifamily units.
Very cool.
Well, it's like the Main Street in Portland, Maine is straight, so they could carry the mast down
Right.
there. Sort of.
The standard length of rope, because they lost naval battle with Spain, and the standard length of rope became 2,600 feet. So they drove all the way down on rail tracks with pump cars. They had a turnaround and they came back, and that's how they got to 2,600 feet. But they invented nylon rope too, it's pretty cool.
I think one of my biggest concerns with the, Stowe brick was, the first thing I noticed was the corner, so. Overall, I thought it was very convincing. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Stowe and plastic and all the rest of it, but as a simulated material, it's pretty convincing.
What do you guys think of the stencil brick?
It's,
You see any-
this is light years ahead of stencil brick.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You been to South Norwalk recently? You know, there's a big, you know, boom of these 4, 5, 6-story apartment buildings. Bruce Feinfield's a very fine architect who did most of them, and they're almost all stencil brick. Now, I'm a traditionalist. We've designed this originally as a brick building, and the market has changed radically in the last 12 months. But I'm become a kind of a convert. I think that the stencil brick is a lot better product than it used to be. When we presented this project 7 years ago, we had a sample of that, and they've improved the product since then. It's better with throwing that out there for future.
How does this stuff hold up? Has it been around long enough to know?
Well, it's been around, and they've been using it in Germany for 15 years. So I know. And we get a warranty on it. It's going to last, you know, it's going to be as stable as the stencil buildings in South Norwalk are. Some of them are 10, 15 years old.
I was concerned about water getting behind it.
Well, that was the first thing that Rick said, what's this? Well, you know, again, because they bent, rather than use an angled piece, they bent it and it pulled away, and it's a little gap. You know, it's a concern of ours.
Right. How is it applied? Does it come in big chunks, big squares, or
No,
individual bricks?
It's like a tile job.
And then
Is there a
grouted or mortared? How does
The
that?
back is the back, which
The
is
the
the
base
color.
coat would be your mortar
That's the
color.
mortar, it's just a stick.
This is applied over the mortar
Yeah.
with some adhesive of some
Well,
sort.
mortar is.
More adhesive, yeah. And then you come and scrape it off.
Yeah, I'm sure they tool it, yeah.
Tool it, yeah.
Oh, I see.
You don't come back later, like a thin brick
Yeah,
system,
Milky's.
right, you install a
Then
thin
you put
brick
it in
and
a
you
clip,
grout
and then you grout it.
Right, this is, oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, so it's one less step,
Mhm.
yeah.
And you guys are looking at the wall
$20 per
section,
foot less.
at the wall section, you guys are putting it directly on
Sorry?
looking at the wall section, you guys are putting it directly, you're not putting it on insulation, you're putting it directly on.
Well, this is insulation. The ICF is 2 inches of foam, 6 inches of concrete, 2 inches of foam. It's a really amazing system. It's got little plastic ties between it, and you can apply some kind of sheathing if you're nailing something to it. But
So
this
it's
is-
poured in place.
Yeah, right.
So you're going right over the insulation?
Yeah,
It's actually an 8-inch wall, 8-inch concrete.
8 inch. From a sustainability point of view, this system is fantastic.
Would that,
Exceeds all the, you know, it exceeds our value requirements. And in terms of infiltration, it's a much easier, you know, system. It doesn't move like wood, so that, you know, those cracks that, you know, the passive house standards are seeking to avoid. I'm meeting with gal at Stephen Winters, and I told her we were doing a project in ICF. You know, it's a real positive of this. I know you don't see it, it's not an architectural
Right.
feature, but it actually is to the quality of the building.
So underneath the sill, you've got a temporary blocking that you're replacing. What are you putting back in there? Read it.
So that blocking to be removed and replaced with EPS filler.
Which is, EPS is pretty soft.
Yeah. I'm not sure why he's doing that. He being Troost.
Blame it on the little kid, right?
No, he's the brains of the organization, believe me.
Anyway, take a look at that.
I will.
I appreciate all the detailing, you know, that you guys put back into the,
That's great. I'm proud of this project. 12 years, 14 years in the making.
Do I have any other discussion on the stove? Does anybody have, I know we would all like real brick. You know, I don't think there's any doubt about that, but
I just left that pile when they demolished it, you guys were
I gotta say, I went there being like, no way I'm gonna like this, and it looked a lot better than I thought it would, so.
Same way.
I'll just say, I commend you for, basically. How good all of our ideas. No, that's great.
The only comment I would make is maybe the rake boards could be a little deeper. Yeah, I think, given the breadth of the elevation, yeah. it's a little thin. Yeah, a little bit. But other than that, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, you want a good sized board there, given the scale of that.
No note. Okay, well, we'll beef it up. It's not a problem.
And these panels are actually recessed.
Right, yeah.
They're 2 inches back
Yeah, I saw that.
with, the whole thing, it goes from the 6 inch to 4 inch here. It's shallower in the middle. So unlike the rest, you were saying all the
Yeah, everything
over here
flush.
things, but at least these guys are actual recessed panels, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Any other comments, thoughts?
And you said the shingles, the sidewall shingles are actual cedar shingles?
And what would you say the finish is again?
That's gonna be clear sealed.
Would only recommend all 6 sides of the board before you put it up, so they.
Right.
Any red cedar, white cedar,
Red.
yellow, red cedar? Okay.
R&Rs, 18 inch.
And the gutters, of course, are all copper gutters. They're just a white aluminum gutter.
I'd say aluminum.
I go more traditional and just put half rounds on?
Certainly can look at that.
I mean, white or whatever. I mean, I think for something like this, it just give it a little more, and give it a little more character.
Can you get metal
As opposed
white,
to- Oh, yeah.
half rounds,
Yeah,
not plastic?
yeah. Aluminum,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
aluminum half rounds.
Have you guys seen the site plan for this? Was that part of the?
What?
Have you seen the site plan for this? Was that part of the initial
Like
presentation?
years ago?
Yeah.
We got it last week.
No, they did.
Oh, I wasn't here, so.
Yeah,
That's right.
we did see
The
it.
site plan was reviewed at the last meeting.
Yeah.
You can bring it up if it's needed.
There's a teeny little one.
Here's the site. Here's the Terry Street.
Sure, I'd like to see it.
Maybe you can go over the front.
I apologize for not being here last time.
Mark, you wanna walk them through the site plan? It's your site plan.
Do we wanna do it again?
Well, you guys have seen all this. I just want to make sure it's been looked at, yeah.
Yeah, the big point is the building, really the 2 buildings that we're focused on are, here's the renovated existing powerhouse,
Right.
with the lawn area out in front. And we're focused on what we call as building 1, which is L-shaped. No way. Is an L-shaped building,
Yep.
relatively close to Perry Street, so similar to the last building.
Yep.
We want to sort of emphasize that streetscape. All those buildings, units that front on Perry Street will have that appearance of a front stoop, couple steps. That goes right along with Mike's elevation. All the parking is in the back. All these units, with the exception of the flats in the corner, all have garage spaces in the back.
Scan down, there are the 3 apartment buildings.
And those are townhouses, right? You guys are selling? They're condos or something, or you don't know yet?
Near what we're doing with them, given what's going on.
We're just curious more than anything.
Got 5 flats, 8 townhomes.
Union School is to this side, 2 access
Will loop through the property.
here, and then here on this side of the property.
Where's the clock tower, Mark?
Towers
Right there.
over here, and the pillars for the entryway,
Are
or just,
flanking each side of the sign, right here.
so the pillars, there's no pillar on the
No
Clock
pillar on
tower.
their side, clock towers on their side,
side.
and this green space really relates well to the existing green space. in the
Gazebo.
village, so.
Thank you. Think so. You guys all good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. We're excited to have something happen over there.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
It's a big day for me. My daughter got engaged 3 hours ago.
Congratulations.
You like the guy? Or the guy, you like the?
I do like the guy. He's a mechanical engineer. Guy. He lives in San Francisco. He actually works for a construction, mechanical construction company, and, his main client is Google. So he's doing all right. Very busy guy.
Cool.
So I gotta go home and celebrate. It's only an hour and a half. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is where they are.
So originally,
They're in here, right?
originally, we were planning on selling the townhomes and flats, current market conditions.
I know the site well.
Yeah.
I used to live.
$600,000 house now qualify for 3, so.
There's Elm Street here. That's my house and
Oh,
my
okay.
carriage
We're
house.
just curious more than anything. It doesn't really matter,
The goal was to sell them all.
Are they in here? Is that where they are?
Basically,
In this area?
This is the existing
Oh,
building.
that's the thing. And that's where we had
Yeah.
the sample was there.
Right, yeah.
So the clock tower's over here.
Well, no, the clock tower is like
Oh, right there. Oh,
right there.
Welcome to Unionville. We're
Okay.
happy to have
The only
you.
reason we're
They're not
getting
up here.
finance is because the bank
They're
has
down there next to the
Yeah.
school. Okay, all right.
It's a riverbed.
Yeah.
Cool. We're happy to have you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Well, we're holding for you, see you.
No, we're good. I'm done. The temper flares, but I don't hold a grudge. You're all good. We just have to do the meeting schedule. So the meeting schedule, Sandy emailed out with the original schedule, or the original agenda. It's a traditional schedule, Thursday, third Thursday of the month, all the way through, no meeting in August. I actually need a motion in a second.
So moved.
I'll second.
Great.
Does that mean the 17th of November?
It means got it as 16th of November for 2023.
No. Oh, I was still in this year.
Sorry.
It's already been set. We're going next year.
Just tell me when to come.
Just come in when I
Third
have.
Thursday.
Yeah, right, I got it.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.